Hi everybody, so we're here for another in our series of resource videos, and this time we are working on pioneering ministries. So these videos are designed to help you if you're looking to start a ministry right from scratch. And I'm here today with the lovely Jane Lloyd, who is part of the team at Icon Church, who was a pioneer in our children's ministry, and that's what we're going to talk about today. All about children's ministry is such an integral part of church life, but if you've never done it before, if you've got a very small team or no team, it can be a bit of a challenge to decide where to start and how to grow and build that ministry. So Jane's here with a wealth of experience and advice to share with us on her experience of pioneering children's ministry. So Jane, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Great. So I would love you to just start by telling us a bit about the children's ministry at Icon Church, how it all started, what it looked like initially.
Yeah, so initially we were a small ministry. I would say there were probably about a dozen children to start off with.
Yeah.
And then the church kind of went through a few changes, and we went through a big leadership shift. And so, as probably many churches have experienced, a lot of people left. And so there was a moment where we were just left with pretty much myself, my 4 children, and maybe a couple of others. So it went really small.
Yeah.
And so at that moment, I just felt like I had to get a fresh perspective on children's ministry and how I was going to see that grow, really. And I remember that I began to lead as if I had 20 kids in the room rather than just 4 or 5. And I just felt that God was challenging me to have the faith that He was able to help to grow a thriving kids ministry again. So obviously time went on, and we began to grow again as a church. And as we grew, we saw the number of children grow as well. And I just remember Paul Benger saying to me, why don't we invest and try and find the best materials that we can to teach the children, and why don't we go for having the best children's ministry in the area? And I know that was kind of what was on my heart anyway. So we went for that, and we just put our trust in God. And so to the point that obviously over years, it took a long time, but now we have a ministry where there's over 60 leaders across all our campuses, and it really is a thriving kids ministry. So yeah, that was amazing.
That's amazing. I love that thought of leading from where you want to go.
Yeah.
And leading a ministry in anticipation of what God's going to bring into that. That's fantastic. So you mentioned resources, and obviously that's a key part of children's ministry, is having a structure. Because kids, we know kids thrive on structure and routine, and it's important in church as it is at home and in school. So how did you go about planning your sessions? Where did you go to for your resources?
Yeah, so I guess it's really important to know what you want to get out of a session. And that can depend on the size of your team, the number of children that you've got, how much time you've got as well. And so when we started, as probably many churches do, the children went out during the message. So that meant that we had about 30 to 40 minutes of teaching time or session time. And I guess in that example, you've probably only got time for maybe a song, a story, a prayer, and an activity, and that's kind of it. But that's great. That's a great starting point. When I think back to how we used to find resources, we used to buy resources in, and we used to go to places like Scripture Union, and then we found Hillsong Kids curriculum, which was great. It was great, but it didn't kind of translate that well. So it was still hard to find something that really fit with our culture and our kids and that kind of thing. Fast forward, and then we got the internet age, and suddenly there was a ton of resources, which are free as well, many of them. And I guess the problem then became, what do you choose? And maybe now is still that problem, what do you choose? But there are good resources out there that you don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
And I guess for us, fast forward a little bit further, we've had the opportunity really to write our own curriculum. So we've kind of tailored something that does fit our kids,
Yeah.
and is easy for us to use to run sessions. And our sessions now don't just include taking the kids out during a message, but like here in Chesterfield, it runs for the whole of the service. So yeah, I would say they have been the key changes for us over the years.
No, that's fantastic. So it's really the things I was picking up on that is planning, seeing what time frame you've got and planning in advance so you can get the most out of that time.
Yeah.
And maybe using some of the free resources, like you say, there's so much available. But then again, aiming towards something once you get to know your kids, and fitting things in with like your church culture, maybe what your church is talking about and dealing with at the time.
It has to fit the children, and obviously the ages of the children come into that as well. But it is finding something that really does fit your situation.
Absolutely. No, that's really helpful. Thank you. And another key part, obviously, is team. Because whilst when you're pioneering a children's ministry, it's often very small at the start. Like you said, it was just yourself and your 4 kids, but you want to grow that, and obviously you need to be mindful of having support in that. So how did you grow and recruit your team?
So I mean, I would say that recruitment is one of the big challenges for any kids team. You're asking a lot of a kids leader. There's a high commitment to it. You're taking them out of the service for a start, so that's a big commitment. And there's more involved in getting a kids leader onto team as well. So I guess a key that I've learned over the years about recruiting is look for people that have a passion for kids ministry, and they genuinely want to see kids flourish in church, because they're the kind of people that you really can build team with. And another tip that I found is to pray for what you need and be specific in that. I mean, there was a moment for us where I really needed another team leader, really, and we were short. And so I just prayed and asked God. And literally within a couple of weeks, this lady joined our church, and she'd got loads of experience with working with children in the church that she'd been in before. She wanted to be part of the team, so we got her on board, and she was absolutely fantastic, a fantastic addition to the team. And then I would say, as we grew over the years, we developed a core team. And they were a group of people that then became responsible for overseeing different parts of the ministry. They oversaw different teams as well. So in every service, we have a GOO team. And so people will serve on that team, or they may serve on other teams if we've got multiple services. But we assigned a leader for each of those teams, so they would be responsible. And so the communication to the team would come through them. So I guess it's, as you grow as a team, it's just having a strategy or a process in place, which makes managing that team and everything within it a lot easier, really. And then the other thing to just mention is a few years ago, we came up with a more robust way of recruiting, really. And I think that's an important process to think through as well. So our process became that a person would apply. So we created an application form. We took a couple of references. We made sure that those people had a couple of visits, because it was important that they knew what they were coming into. Do they still want to serve on that team? Having seen what happens, which is important, because it might open their eyes. And anyway, so that was important to have those visits. And then we would do the DBS, which is
Yeah.
crucial. And then give them a bit of safeguarding training, just basic training. And then once all that is done, they can then get their T-shirt and they're good to go.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I think obviously with having a bigger team, that's part of our process now at Icon Church, but all those key points, having people with passion, but those key points of safeguarding training and DBS checking and making sure all the policies are in place. At the end of the day, you're working with children.
Yeah.
And all the legalities of that have got to be kept up to date.
Absolutely.
And just as an aside, Ground Level can help with that. We have got a whole policy section on our website. We do offer support with DBS checking. So even if you're as a church, you've not got any experience of that and you really are starting from scratch, we can support you and help you in that.
Yeah, that's great.
Brilliant. So I'm sure there's plenty here, but I'd love to hear some of the highlights for you, some of those real key moments as you've grown and developed the children's ministry.
Yeah, so there's been a lot over the years, really, but I guess the main ones would be, first of all, seeing the ministry grow from a handful of children to what it is now. I think, whenever God puts a dream in your heart, and you see that come to fruition, it really is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm so thankful for that, just seeing that happen over years. Especially when, you invest so much of your life, your time into that, to see God put his hand of blessing upon it is just an awesome thing. So that would be the first one. I think the second one would be, so we've created events through our ministry that reach out to the community, and we've reached out to hundreds of children over the years. And one of those events has been holiday clubs that we've run in the summer. And I would say that definitely for me is a real highlight. I mean, again, it was a dream that became a reality, and it started off small.
Yeah.
But God gave us momentum in that. And really, we saw it grow, and the team grew from strength to strength, such that we could just create an environment which was really fun and exciting and really welcoming. The team are amazing. Every year they're amazing, but there's just something about that event. It just is so welcoming to families and children, so much so that they just come back time after time. And we've seen many families actually come into the church through those events as well. So that's been really exciting to see. So that would be my second. And I think the third one would be writing and producing our own curriculum, which we've done over the last few years. And we've now got a 3-year curriculum in place, which, like I say, is tailored to our kids. But also it's something that, we can use across all our campuses. So literally we can give it to any leader and they can take it, and it has everything there for a session. So there's minimal preparation. They don't have to do any preparation really if they don't want to, or they can take it and change it. It's entirely up to them, but it makes it so much easier and more accessible, because everybody's under time constraints these days. So anything that can help cut down on preparation, absolutely, I think is really helpful. So that's been an amazing thing to be part of.
Brilliant. Yeah. And all of those things there, like you said, they all started as a dream and a vision and a desire to see something happen. And that's just been built up slowly over the years, and you've just worked with what you've got and developed that, and God's been faithful in that process. So I think it's often we can hear these stories and think, yes, but I haven't got a children's ministry. But we didn't initially.
No.
And this is all something that you've developed with your team over time.
And I think God puts things in your heart.
Absolutely.
He uses what, if you're willing to offer him what you have, he'll take that, and we've seen it multiply. Obviously his word talks about that, doesn't he? He multiplies what we offer to him. And I think that has been our story, really. Yeah.
Brilliant. And obviously, with highlights come challenges.
Yeah.
Working with children and
Yeah.
working in this area of ministry, like any church ministry, can come with its challenges.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the challenges that you've faced?
Yeah. So I think the main ones would be, first of all, recruitment. We've already mentioned that,
Yeah,
but it is hard to retain people because of the level of commitment, I
yeah,
think, that's involved. People come and go, and you're always in the position you've got to make sure that you've got enough leaders for the number of children that you've got. Those ratios have got to be right all the time, and people leave for different reasons, or they're there for a season,
yeah,
and then that's it. They go. So I guess there's always that constant feeling that you've got to keep recruiting the next leader,
yeah,
and I don't think that ever stops really. So that is one of the biggest challenges, I think, for most kids teams. Yeah, I think another challenge has been space,
yeah. Mm.
lack of space
Mhm.
usually. I mean, for us, definitely in the Chesterfield campus, we are desperate for more space.
Yeah,
We've got a growing number of children all the time, and we're really at the limit. So, space is always a challenge. And I think, also when in our rented spaces as well, if you have rented space,
yeah,
it's difficult because you want to create an environment that's child friendly, and
yeah,
you want to create a space that the kids are going to feel welcome in, that they're going to be excited about coming into. And that can be a challenge when you're in a rented space and you've got to set down all the time. So I would say that's another big challenge for churches. And then the other challenge, I guess, for us really would be the area around SEN children
yeah,
and children with disability. Um, and I think it's just having that expertise. You want
mm,
really the leaders and the resources that cater for those children,
yeah,
and are appropriate for those children. So again, that can be linked with space. I mean, it would be so amazing to have a dedicated space.
yeah.
If you've got a dedicated space, then you are very fortunate. We would love to have that. But yeah, just catering for those children really
Mm,
is a challenge, because it takes a lot more resource
yeah.
really to do that. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's really great. So finally, I just wanted we've talked about a lot of stuff and there's some great advice in there and hearing your stories. But if you could sort of give people maybe three to five tips, those
Yeah.
real kind of key things. We want to start a children's ministry. We're doing it from the ground up.
Yeah.
What are those real key elements for you?
Yeah. So I've got three.
Excellent.
um I would say, first of all, is investment.
Okay.
Really, you want your leadership team to get behind you and invest into what you're doing. So I would say, I would encourage you, first of all, to share your vision
Hmm.
with the leadership team. Get them excited about what you want to do, get them behind it. I'm so thankful that here at Icon Church, the leaders have really invested heavily into children and youth work.
Mm.
Um, and they've seen the potential
Yeah.
within it. So I think that's a key thing going forward. You need the investment, for them to see the potential, what God can do through a great children's ministry. That would be the first one. Secondly, I would say find good resources
Hmm.
for your program. We've talked about resources anyway, and I think that is a key thing. You want something that's going to engage those kids
Yeah.
and make them want to come back
Yeah.
week after week. But it also, if you find the right resource, it can empower your leaders, and make them want to come back
Yeah.
week after week and lead those children. So I would say look for good resources, yeah, and find something that works for you and your team. And I would say the third thing is have distinct vision and values. I mean, that's something that we worked on a number of years ago. And it really has helped us. But I think, if you've got a distinct vision and values, it's going to help you, first of all, to recruit the right kind of people, because you're instilling vision into them. You're making them excited about what it is you're trying to do as a ministry. But it will also help you to build that ministry into what you want it to be. When you see it, you can declare it, and it's just clear. It's clear. Habakkuk says to see the vision and to write it down, put it out there, explain it to people. It's really, really key in moving forward as a ministry. And I do believe that everything you then do will come out of that vision and those values that you have created. So I would say they're the three key things that have helped us.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's brilliant. So we're going to make sure we invest in our ministry.
Yep.
We're going to make sure that we get good resources and have a clear vision and values. That's brilliant. And they're really three key foundational areas to start in any ministry, really, but particularly in children's ministry, that sets us up really well. Well, that's been great. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.